Why does an avoidant humiliate your affection? Love is the most beautiful expression of the human heart. When someone opens themselves completely, they deserve respect and gratitude in return. But when you offer your love as devotion and receive mockery instead, the wound is not just on the heart, it cuts through the soul. Humiliation is exactly this, when your love is not honored but turned into a joke, when your emotions are not respected but dismissed as drama and made to feel small. The philosopher Seneca once said, "Insult is not in the words spoken but in the wound they leave behind." This truth reminds us that humiliation does not lie in the sound of words, but in the scars they etch deep inside, stripping away one's dignity, and the avoidant uses this very wound as their weapon. When you show care, they brush your words aside with a cold smile. When you express your love, they reduce it to overreaction or melodrama. Your emotions, which should have been proof of depth and affection, become in their eyes a weakness. This humiliation becomes a strategy, a way to chip away at your affection until you begin to doubt yourself. They treat your dignity as a game, turning your feelings into punchlines and forcing you to hide what was once offered freely. Your love, which was meant to be a gift, is turned into a burden, even into ridicule. And that is the deepest pain. Humiliation comes not from strangers but from those to whom you give your heart most completely. Today we will uncover how the avoidant humiliates your affection, the 6 actions where your love, instead of being cherished, is torn apart and turned into a wound. Public mockery. Aristotle once wrote, "To laugh at another's misfortune is to show the poverty of one's own character." This simple truth still echoes centuries later, because when someone turns another person's feelings into entertainment, it is never just laughter, it is cruelty dressed as humor. Nothing wounds deeper than being made into a joke by the one you love. Think about those moments when you are sitting in a gathering surrounded by friends, family, or even strangers. You speak up, maybe you share a thought, an opinion, or simply a piece of your heart. And suddenly the person you trust the most, the one you love, twists your words into a punchline. The room bursts into laughter, but inside you feel a sharp sting. On the surface it looks like fun, like harmless banter, but deep down you know it wasn't playful, it was personal. It was your dignity being traded for a few seconds of attention. Humiliation in public is different from private disregard. Private disrespect can sometimes be hidden, brushed away, or explained as a misunderstanding, but when you are mocked in front of others, there is no hiding from it. Everyone witnesses the moment when your presence is reduced, when your words are belittled, when your feelings are turned into comedy material. You sit there with a forced smile, pretending to laugh along while inside you are breaking. And the tragedy is most people in that room don't even notice the pain, they only hear the laughter. This is how an avoidant uses public mockery as a shield and as a weapon. Instead of valuing your affection, they exploit it. They know your words come from a place of care and sincerity, but sincerity is uncomfortable for them. It exposes vulnerability, it asks for closeness, and rather than hold that space, they flip it into humor. By laughing at you, they take back control. By making others laugh at you, they gain a false sense of power. It feels small in the moment. One sarcastic comment, one eye roll, one exaggerated imitation of your voice or expression. But those small acts add up. Each time your seriousness is turned into a joke, your position in the relationship shifts. You no longer feel safe to express, to share, to open your heart. You begin to hesitate, to censor yourself, to stay silent where once you would have spoken freely. And in this silence your love starts shrinking. Anyone who has experienced this knows the quiet shame of those moments. The long ride home where you replay what happened, asking yourself, did I overreact? Was it really that bad? Maybe I'm too sensitive. But deep down you know it was not sensitivity, it was humiliation. It was your affection, your trust, your presence being used as material for someone else's performance. And this is the cruel irony. The world laughs for a few seconds and forgets, but you carry that memory like a scar, because for you it wasn't just a joke, it was a betrayal of love. Dismissing your words. Marcus Aurelius once said, "When someone refuses to take your words seriously, it reflects their weakness, not yours." This truth reminds us that when someone dismisses what you say, it does not reduce your worth, it only exposes the poverty of their own attitude. This is exactly what the avoidant does. When you speak from the heart, When you try to share a fear, a worry, or a thought that weighs on you, instead of listening, the avoidant cuts it down in a single sentence. You say your heart feels heavy, and the avoidant replies, "You're making this a bigger deal than it is." You try to put your concern into words, and instantly they respond, "That's just overthinking." In that moment, it feels as if your voice, your pain, and even your presence have been stripped of meaning. This behavior is not harmless. It is a blade that pierces you again and again. Every time your words are dismissed, a part of your confidence dies. You begin to wonder if maybe your feelings really are insignificant. You start to hide your thoughts, silence your emotions, and over time that silence begins to eat away at your love itself. For the avoidant, this becomes a pattern. Instead of listening, they stamp your words with a label, unimportant. But the truth is, every time they do this, they are not just silencing your words, they are cutting into the very root of your relationship. Your emotions hit a wall and bounce back into you, leaving you emptier than before. Think about how many times you've tried to share something from the depths of your heart, only to have the avoidant shut it down with a single line. That is not just indifference, it is a subtle form of humiliation. You place your pain carefully into words, offering it with trust, and they throw it aside as if it were nothing. To the world it might look like an ordinary reply, even casual, but for the one who lives it, it is a deep wound. It is that quiet moment, when you realize your words don't count anymore, as if your very existence has been made smaller. This is what the avoidant does. They trivialize your voice, reduce your truth to exaggeration, and deny your love the place it deserves. Labeling emotions as drama. Epictetus once said, "What upsets people is not things themselves but the judgments they make about them." When someone looks at your tears, your fears, your honesty, and calls it an exaggeration, what they are truly doing is judging your soul through a distorted lens, and that is what the avoidant does, twisting your genuine emotions into the label of drama. Imagine the moment when you gather the courage to open up. You finally let your guard down, speaking of what weighs on your chest. Instead of meeting that vulnerability with warmth, the avoidant smirks, sighs, or shakes their head and says, "Stop being dramatic." That single line doesn't just cut your words, it cuts your right to feel. Suddenly your tears are seen as weakness, your worries are mocked as fantasy, and your pain is dismissed as performance. This dismissal is not small. It carries the weight of betrayal, because the very place where you should find safety becomes a stage where you're accused of acting. The avoidant takes what is most real in you, your emotions, and rebrands it as something fake. And once that label is thrown, you find yourself shrinking, doubting, replaying the scene in your head. Was I really overreacting? Did I sound too emotional? Maybe I am the problem. But the truth is, you were not performing, you were being human. The avoidant thrives on this tactic. By calling your emotions drama, they keep themselves distant. They don't have to step into your pain, they don't have to engage, they don't have to care. It's easier to slap a label than to sit with intimacy, and so they trivialize what should matter most, your inner world. Over time, this pattern rewires you. You start holding back your feelings, you stop sharing what hurts. You silence the laughter that comes too loud, the tears that come too fast, the fears that keep you awake at night. Because every time you reveal them, you risk hearing the same cold verdict, drama. What once was the bridge of love becomes a battleground where your authenticity is treated as excess. Think about how this feels. You enter the room with an open heart and leave it with a closed mouth. The avoidant has trained you to believe that vulnerability is shameful, that love expressed too openly is something to ridicule, that your very depth is a flaw. But here is the raw truth. When an avoidant calls your emotions drama, it is not a reflection of you. It is their refusal to confront the reality of closeness. They are not mocking your heart because it is weak. They are mocking it because it is strong enough to feel what they cannot. And in the end, what you carry as pain is not your inadequacy, it is their blindness. Downplaying achievements. Fyodor Dostoevsky once wrote, "Man is sometimes extraordinarily passionately in love with suffering." In those words lies a hidden truth. Some people cannot bear to see light in others, so they shrink it down, dim it, and turn it into a shadow. And this is exactly what the avoidant does when they downplay your achievements. Think about the moment you accomplish something meaningful. It might be a promotion at work, finishing a project, or even a personal milestone like breaking an old habit. Your heart is eager to share, not out of pride but out of joy. You want the person closest to you to celebrate with you. But instead of recognition, the avoidant throws cold water on your fire. They shrug and say, "It's not a big deal," or smirk and mutter, "Just luck." What should have been a moment of triumph becomes a moment of shame, where you feel almost guilty for feeling proud. This is not a small wound. It attacks the very core of your identity. Every achievement, no matter how big or small, carries pieces of your effort, your persistence, your battles that no one else saw. When the avoidant trivializes it, they are not only dismissing the result, they are erasing the struggle behind it. They humiliate your journey by pretending it was effortless or meaningless. Over time, this dismissal conditions you. You start second-guessing yourself, hiding your successes, downplaying them before anyone else can. You tell yourself, "Maybe it wasn't that important," echoing the voice of the avoidant. And slowly, the flame of ambition, of confidence, dims within you. You stop celebrating yourself because you've been taught celebration is embarrassing. But the truth is, the avoidant's belittling does not reflect the value of your achievement. It reflects their inability to share joy. To them, your success feels like a mirror, exposing their insecurities, their lack of growth, their emptiness. So instead of clapping for you, they cut you down. It is easier for them to diminish you than to confront themselves. The avoidance tactic is cruelly simple. By making you feel small in your moments of greatness, they keep control. They remind you without saying it that in this relationship, your light must never outshine theirs. And you, desperate for harmony, often accept it, folding yourself into silence. But your achievement does not need their applause to be real. The hours you invested, the struggles you overcame, the courage it took, all of it remains untouched by their words. Their mockery is not a verdict on your worth, it is a confession of their own weakness. So when the avoidant downplays your success, remember this: they are not laughing at your victory, they are hiding from their own defeat. Withdrawing affection. Søren Kierkegaard once said, "The most painful state of being is remembering the future, particularly the one you can never have." These words mirror the silent wound inflicted when the love you give is met, not with warmth, but with cold distance. And this is exactly what the avoidant does. When you open your heart with affection, they answer not with closeness, but with silence, sarcasm, or a chilling withdrawal that makes your presence feel unwanted. Imagine reaching out with tenderness, a hug, a kind word, a small act of intimacy, only to be met with a blank stare, or worse, a sarcastic smirk that turns your love into something foolish. In that instant, the avoidant does not just reject the gesture, they reject you. What could have been a moment of connection transforms into a moment of isolation, where your love is left hanging in the air, unanswered. That silence, heavy and cold, becomes louder than any harsh word could ever be. This withdrawal is not neutral, it is a calculated form of humiliation. To ignore love is to deny the very thing that makes us human. When your affection is brushed aside or treated as unnecessary, it plants doubt inside you. Am I asking for too much? Is my love unwanted? Slowly, you begin to silence yourself, holding back the very gestures that once flowed freely. And this is the avoidant's quiet victory. By refusing to reciprocate, they train you to withhold your love. But the truth is deeper. The avoidant is not rejecting your worth, but hiding from their own fear. Your affection exposes their vulnerability, and instead of facing it, they build walls of silence. They convince themselves that coldness equals control, that distance equals strength. Yet in reality, this coldness is weakness, dressed as power. The tragedy is how personal it feels to you, that one unanswered embrace, that one ignored message, that one sarcastic reply. It pierces deeper than open conflict. Because silence does not just hurt the ears, it weighs on the soul. Every cold shoulder says, "You are too much, you are not worth responding to." And you carry that weight, questioning the legitimacy of your own needs. What the avoidant doesn't realize is that love cannot survive in ice. Affection, when denied, turns into humiliation. Connection, when withdrawn, leaves scars that no apology can erase. Their silence is not strength, it is an emptiness that corrodes everything around it. So when the avoidant withdraws their affection, remember their coldness is not a mirror of your love, it is the reflection of their own inability to embrace it. They are not proving that your affection is meaningless, they are proving that they are too fragile to hold it. Love was never meant to be humiliated, it was meant to be received, nurtured, and honored. Yet with an avoidant, love too often becomes the very target of their defense mechanisms. Through mockery, dismissal, coldness, and indifference, they turn the most sacred offering of the human heart into something small, laughable, and even shameful. And the cruelest part is not the act itself, it is the way it makes you question your own worth, your own feelings, your very right to love. But here lies the truth. Their humiliation is not a verdict on you, it is a confession about them. When they laugh at your words, it reveals their fear of intimacy. When they dismiss your emotions, it exposes their inability to handle depth. When they downplay your achievements, it mirrors their insecurity. And when they withdraw affection, it is not because your love is too much, but because they cannot bear the weight of something so real. Every wound they inflict feels personal, yet none of it is truly about you. The scars you carry are not proof of weakness, they are proof that you loved fully in a space where love was mishandled. That is strength, not shame. The avoidant may try to rewrite your story into one of exaggeration, drama, or insignificance, but the reality is that your affection, your efforts, and your victories remain untouchable. Love does not lose its value because someone fails to honor it. If anything, it grows even stronger in the face of rejection, because it shows you the depth of your own capacity to give, and that is something the avoidant cannot take away. Their silence, their coldness, their mockery, these are not the end of love. They are only the limits of theirs, not yours. Ignoring efforts. William James once said, "The deepest principle of human nature is the craving to be appreciated." When a person shapes their love into small acts of care, all their heart truly longs for is a moment of recognition, a glance that says, "I see you, I value you." But the avoidant shatters that completely. Imagine this, you've made tea for them after a long, exhausting day, sent a thoughtful text, or planned a small gesture just to keep the relationship strong. Yet the avoidant doesn't even see it. No thank you, no smile, no acknowledgement. Sometimes they respond in a sarcastic tone, all this fuss over something so small, and other times they simply walk past as if nothing happened. Your feelings are quietly buried under the weight of their indifference. This is not just neglect, it's a subtle humiliation. When your efforts are ignored, something inside you whispers, maybe my effort doesn't matter, maybe I'm the one doing too much. Slowly you start to drain your own energy, and the relationship begins to feel like a burden. For the avoidant, this effortless dismissal becomes a habit, but for you, it's a wound that keeps reopening. An avoidant needs to understand that love is not sustained by words alone. Those gestures, those little acts of effort, are the very soul of love. But when they fail to value them, they aren't just rejecting the act, they're rejecting your heart. You may have noticed how the avoidant either downplays your gestures or twists them into exaggerations, turning them into a joke. Instead of a compliment, you get comments that make you feel embarrassed about your own feelings, and you start asking yourself, am I overdoing this? Should I stop? That's their silent attack. By refusing to acknowledge your efforts, they make you feel as though your gestures, your time, and your love are meaningless. And the deepest wound is not caused by hatred, it's caused by silence. The truth is, when an avoidant ignores your efforts, they are exposing their own incapacity. They lack the ability to truly feel and respond to love, so they hide from it, shrink it, diminish it. This is not your shortcoming, it is their blindness. Your gestures might vanish in their eyes, but their worth remains untouched.